Welcome to Tatev Talks, where brains meets banter. On this episode, we're going to talk about imposter syndrome. Stay tuned for more. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to talk about imposter syndrome. We're going to talk about what imposter syndrome is, how to identify it, how to overcome it, and if it's going to last forever. And then I'll tell you a little bit about my experience with imposter syndrome. But before we do that, we're going to do my obsession for the week. This week's obsession is perfect. Trader Joe's rolled corn tortilla chips. It's the better version, maybe different type of spicier but better version of Takis. It's also not as gross with all of its ingredients. Still kind of gross, but not as gross as Takis is. Very, very good. You should give it a try. And then let us know in the comments what you think. I heard a lot of people like the apple pie. So this one doesn't have any instructions. You just open the bag and eat them. So enjoy. Also, shout out to my producer. Also, Luke is joining us today again. So hopefully he stays through the episode. Last time he got a little sick and tired of me. So hopefully he stays through the entire episode. Luke, do you want to say hi? Yeah. That's as good as it's going to get. So today we're talking about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is generally identified as self-doubt that high-achieving individuals experience. So this could be anyone in any setting when they're making accomplishments, they're not feeling like their accomplishments are actually worth anything. So it could be someone in a college setting, right, getting a college degree. It could be someone in a job setting. It could be someone in any type of field in which they're achieving something. They're really not feeling like those achievements are based on merit, are based on worth, are based on or valuable at all, right? So any of those things. So how do you identify whether or not you're actually experiencing imposter syndrome or if you're just having like you're going through a funk, right? A couple of things. So first, you want to think about like how often do these feelings come up? Oftentimes for people who are experiencing imposter syndrome, the feeling is nonstop. It's not like um, they're feeling doubtful and then they get an A on a paper and the feeling completely goes away and they feel like they matter and like everything they've done is worth it. Oftentimes it's a consistent feeling that lasts regardless of what the achievement is. And regardless of what the compliment is, regardless of whatever the case is, right? It's a feeling of like you don't belong, like you don't feel like you're valued. It's feeling like you're out of place often. It's feeling like whatever you do doesn't add anything to the environment that you're in. Again, work or school settings. Oftentimes, this can happen with people who haven't had experience in that setting. So we talk about imposter syndrome a lot with first generation college students. And if your parents haven't gone to college, your siblings haven't gone to college, and that environment is new for you and you're experiencing for the first time, it's like stepping out of your existing world with your family and going into a world that no one has experienced before. So you're on uncharted territory. You have to like find your own way and figure out how to maneuver this world, and there's so many things that you don't know about based on like hidden curriculums and things like that. So experiencing that in that setting where you're so out of place and you feel like you don't belong and nothing you do is good enough or worth it or based on merit, and none of the compliments you get matter, all of that stuff can lead to imposter syndrome. So that's one way. But the other thing that you really want to do is acknowledge where your imposter syndrome stems from. For some people, it's that uncharted territory, right? Going from a family who's never been to college, stepping into college, this is like brand new environment, brand new curriculum, brand new everything. Sometimes it's that. For other people, it could be experiences of verbal abuse when they were kids, right? Like experiences of people often telling them that they're not worthy, that they're not good enough, that they, nothing they do matters. All of that stuff can kind of add up and lead into adulthood, and where whenever someone is actually giving you a compliment, you are not able to take it or not able to value your own work and your own experiences and your own achievements. So it could be either of those things. And for everyone, it's different, right? Imposter syndrome can stem from a million places. And for everyone, it's different. But identifying whether or not you have it and where it comes from is the first kind of step um, to moving forward. So I'm going to tell you how to overcome it. I think this is something cool that I don't always hear people talk about when they're talking about imposter syndrome, but I do have an action plan for you that I think will be really, really worth it. It's a 2-step action plan, not super hard, very, very simple. So the first step is you have to identify the things that you value in anyone, right? So I want you to have a journal with you, have a notebook. You can type this on your computer, but it's always better to use the skill of like writing. It makes it more processable for your brain and more memorable for you whenever you're going to recall this information. So take out a journal, think about the people that you value, think about the people that you look up to, your role models, anyone that you think is awesome, amazing, cool, any of your friends, any of your family, anyone that you think does something good, think about them and think about what is it that you value about the work that they do. So it could be a famous person, right? It could be someone who's high achieving. It could be someone in the place that you work. It could be a professor. It could be a CEO, whatever the case is. Any of these people, you look up to them and you think that they are so cool and they're so worth it and they are so smart and intelligent and whatever. That's something that you value, that you're striving for to achieve, right? You want to be that person. You want to be like that person in some way. So I want you to think about those people and write down all the things that they have in them, characteristics that they hold, personality traits or anything like that that they have that makes them valuable to you. Could be like that they're hardworking, right? Could be that they have this great writing skill. Could be that they great at time management. I don't know, whatever the case is, whatever you think, I would like you to just write those things down, right? Like I value my friend because she's really hardworking. The way that I define hardworking is she gets up every morning at 7 o'clock in the morning and makes breakfast, and then she sits down on her computer and does 2 hours of work and blah 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 blah. Like this is a hardworking individual, right? Person who can say no to going out to finish this assignment. All of those things that you think are valuable and make a good, successful human, I would like you to just write about them. So take a few minutes. You can pause this. You can do this later, but take a few minutes to just write those things down and think about it, right? I want you to think about people who maybe are close to you that you value, classmate, a friend, a family member. And I want you to think about people who are quote unquote famous, right? Like people who have these high achieving titles, and think about all the things that they hold that you value, that you want to be like, that you want to achieve. And write all of those things down. In the second step, I want you to think about how you can actually do the things that you value. So, I'm going to give you an example, one that has to do with the education system, because imposter syndrome is so often talked about in the educational setting. Thinking about something valuable in academics, right? Could be good grades. So, if you're valuing good grades, I want you to try to think about, and I know I say think about a lot, but try to understand what it is about good grades that you value. Is good grades for you just passing the class with an A? Or is what you really value the learning process? Is it the academic aspect of it? Is the value to you just the letter grade? Or is the value to you the fact that the letter grade implies that you have actually learned something in that class, right? And these are two separate things. So I never want people to get confused with letter grades. Bless me. I never want people, these are two separate things. And I never want people to get confused with letter grades meaning the worth that you have in the classroom, because it really doesn't. I've had people who are incredibly intelligent, very, very smart, very hardworking, who haven't passed my class with an A. And I have had people who don't often put a lot of effort in and who have passed my class with an A, right? So this matters, this or my class or other classes. This is not the same thing. Getting a grade in the class does not signify your worth in that class. And what I want you to think about it and about it is, what part of that do you value? Do you value the grade or do you value the learning? Now, I also want to preface that while grades don't necessarily signify your worth, that is how you're trying to go to grad school. You do need those grades. You do need to have, like a good GPA and all of that stuff. So while we don't have another system to build um, on like getting into grad school and things of that nature, I do want you to think about, for this activity, what is it that you particularly value? Is it just the letter grade or is it the learning? If it's just the letter grade, then in your second step, what you're doing is writing down all the things you need to do to achieve that letter grade. So at the start of the new semester, you could do this, right? You could say, hey, I'm taking 4 classes. And in my 4 classes, to get an A, I need to have a 90%. To get a 90%, I need to get an A on this assignment, an A on this assignment, an A on this. I can only miss this many points. And you track your progress throughout the term. You also make sure to turn in all your assignments on time. You do all of those things in advance. If your goal and what you value is the learning aspect of it, then maybe you're setting aside in your action plan steps that you need to do to actually learn the material rather than just getting the letter grade. Maybe it's like, hey, I'm going to sit down and actually read the textbook for an hour. I'm going to make flashcards even though we don't have a quiz. I'm going to actually participate in X, Y, and Z way that's making the learning process actually doable for me. So again, 2 steps, right? Action plan 1 is writing down all the things that you value that you want to do. Action plan 2, action step 2, I should say, is writing down how you can actually do those things to recognize your worth and improve the things that you value, right? So I'm going to value learning. I'm going to do all of these things. I've pointed out now that learning is valuable to me. And look, I'm actually doing all of those things that I value. So I must actually improve what I think about myself. And you can do this in a bunch of different aspects. If you value, if you love your friend, right, you think they're valuable and hardworking because they have great time management skills. Time management to me says that they're also always on time, right? Like, you acknowledge that being on time is a good thing to have and to hold as a person in a work setting, in an academic setting, in any setting. It's great to be on time. It's respectable, blah, blah, blah. How do you make sure that you're on time? That's your action plan. How do you make sure that you can also embody that characteristic and embody the thing that you value by actually being on time? Bunch of things, right? First of all, acknowledge how long it takes you to do certain things. What does your morning routine look like? Okay, it takes me an hour, let's say, to wake up and get ready and, get dressed and step out of the house. Okay, so if it takes you an hour to do that and it takes you 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour to get to wherever you need to go, school or work, then in the morning you have to plan for 2 hours in advance of what time you need to be there. If you need to be at work at 9, then you should be up by 7 and leave the house by 8, right? Does that make sense? So these are the things that you would have to do for time management. Map out your time, map out how long things take you. Maybe you're not staying up as much, maybe at night, right? You're getting enough sleep. Maybe you're not watching as much TV anymore, maybe all of these things. But you have to map out how long these things take you to be able to actually build your time management skills. How long does it take you to study? How long does it take you to read the chapter? How long does it take you to read an article? How long do your assignments take you usually? How much time does going to class take away from your day or seeing your friends? So on and so forth. So the first step is noticing what you value in people around you. How do you acknowledge those accomplishments and those valuable characteristics in the people around you? And the second step is to start embodying those things with an action plan, right? Creating your own action plan to actually do the things that you value, and then you're more able to value yourself. And that would improve your imposter syndrome, right? Like, I like all these things about all these people, and now I also carry all of those traits. I also embody all of the things that I value because I was able to do blah, blah, blah. So that's my action plan for you. Let me know if it works. Try it. Let me know if it works. Write down all of these things, write down the steps. Writing things down will help you with any aspect of your life, but specifically for this, write them down. Write down how you did, track your progress, track your time management, track all of the things so you can see what progress you're making. Luke is kicking me. Okay. So then I'm going to talk about if imposter syndrome is forever. Yes and no. I'm not completely sure if it ever really goes away. I think imposter syndrome can be improved a little bit, but I don't know. I feel like there's always a sense of doubt, especially for people who are like always striving for more and always trying to do more. There's always a little bit of, I'm not completely sure whether or not I'm perfectly fit for this or good enough for this. There's a little bit of that. But I think working on it in this way, like creating that action plan, knowing the things that you value, acknowledging that you're doing good and you're being productive and successful and valuable, that's one step to do it. And I think another thing that can help improve your imposter syndrome is figuring out your sense of belonging, right? Like if you're going to college and you're experiencing imposter syndrome, how do you feel on campus? Do you feel like you belong with the other students? Do you feel like you have friendships? Are you in clubs and organizations? Have you talked to your professors? Have you been to the department that you're in? Have you talked to the people in the department? Have you, met other people? Do you go to events? Do you feel like you belong and you're a part of the school as a community? So building your community and building your sense of belongingness can actually improve your emotive state and improve your or decrease your feelings of imposter syndrome. It can make you feel better. It can make you feel more useful. It can make you feel like you matter in that space, right? And you do matter. It's just about building that sense of belonging. It's about building community on the campus that you're at. And again, this is applicable for work settings too. It's about building your sense of belonging in your workplace, right? It's about making sure your coworkers and you are friendly or sociable in some sort of way. um, Making sure you have like a safe place to be and feel good about yourself and the people that you work with and the people that are your higher ups and the people that are below you, all of that. So building your sense of belonging is another really good way to kind of decrease that and kind of make sure that it doesn't always last forever. I think having a sense of self-doubt is probably something that will happen with everyone regardless of what step that you're at. But building your sense of belonging and making sure you're actually doing the things that you value in yourself is going to decrease how much you feel imposter syndrome. I do also want to point out that it's important to acknowledge your achievements. I think oftentimes people who experience imposter syndrome fail to really acknowledge that they're doing good in whatever setting, right? Um, so one thing that's like pretty common that I've heard often is even this is even happening with first generation students, right? First generation students will be like, it's just a bachelor's degree. Like I don't need to walk on stage, or it doesn't matter as much. It's just a bachelor's degree. It's just a BA. It's just a BA. It's not just a BA though. In reality, being a first generation college student is going into this whole new world that no one in your family has ever experienced. And you're the first one to do this thing, right? You're the first one to graduate. You're the first one to actually go through this academic system, learn it, know it like the back of your hand. And now you're graduating with this degree. For some majors, a BA is maybe not going to guarantee you this crazy high paying job. But at the end of the day, you still did something that's acknowledgeable and it's amazing and it's great. Like you need to be very, very aware of the achievements that you're having and the things that you're doing and being like happy about them, right? Being proud of the things that you're accomplishing. And a BA is something to be proud of. Any degree is something to be proud of. It's very important that you, especially if you're experiencing imposter syndrome, to be acknowledging all of your achievements and like processing them as they come. Okay, I'm going to tell you my experience with imposter syndrome just a little bit, and we'll do a coffee break this time. This is from Republic. No, not Republic. This is from Reborn. Very good. They have a few locations. Anyways, I did experience imposter syndrome a lot. I was a first generation college student as well. Not in my undergrad as much. I think in undergrad, I was just trying to get out and I didn't really acknowledge the experiences that I had and like just taking it in for what it was. But when I got into my master's program, I very much had a lot of imposter syndrome because I felt like I didn't know a lot of the hidden curriculum. I was unaware of um, kind of like common practices. It seemed to me like they were common practices, and at the time, it seemed to me like I was the only one who was unaware of them. Um, I felt like I was the only one who didn't know how to write. I felt like I was the only one who didn't know um, how to, do these presentations. Or I felt like I just felt constantly out of the loop. I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like I was trying to make myself matter, but I didn't care enough to do it. So I just felt like I didn't matter all the time. If that makes sense. I just felt insignificant in a place where I feel like I should. I thought at the time that I should feel really significant, like I should feel really proud of myself for being in this program. But in reality, I was just not happy. I was just sad, and I just felt very, very much like I didn't belong. I felt very, very much like I wasn't good enough, and I wasn't like doing my best work. And whenever anyone would give me a compliment, I would be like, okay, well, they give everyone else compliments, so it really doesn't matter as much. Or, okay, they're just nice, or they're just giving me the compliment because they have to, not because I actually earned the compliment, right? I would pitch an idea or turn in my work or do something like that, and it was just always like, oh, this is such a good job or whatever. And I just would be like, no, you're lying. Like, it's not a good job. So I experienced that really heavy when I was in my master's program, and it kind of eased up a little bit. Now in my PhD program, I experience it still, and it's a very different type of thing because in my master's program, I really wanted to be better. Like, I was striving really hard to like try harder and be better and read more and be really involved, and I was. And so this is what I mean by the sense of belonging. I built a really good sense of belonging after my first semester with just campus clubs and TAing on campus and meeting other professors and just doing all these things. So I was really active in trying to decrease my imposter syndrome and trying to create a better environment for myself. Now my PhD program, I still feel that, but I feel a little less active in my role to try to decrease it. And I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure. We're still psychoanalyzing all of this here. I'm not exactly sure why I'm not super active in doing all the things. I'm still, TAing, I'm still meeting professors and like doing all the me academic things that are very much me, but I don't necessarily feel a sense of belonging as much as I thought I would. And I'm definitely still feeling imposter syndrome. And I definitely don't think like whenever I, receive a compliment, it's still kind of like iffy for me to take it. So different levels. And this is what I mean by I'm not really sure if it ever does go away. I think sometimes I even feel imposter syndrome whenever I'm teaching. Not often, but sometimes it does happen. So it kind of is like a roller coaster and it teeter tatters, right? It comes and goes. It's sometimes a little more heavy than other times, but just acknowledging where it comes from, right? I kind of stepped into this whole new world when I was coming into the grad school, and I was not really prepared to go to grad school. So when I started, the imposter syndrome was really heavy. And after a while, it just, being more involved, engaging in events and like activities and with my community on campus and all of that stuff helped me decrease that. And, it's just a wave. They're feelings and they come and go. So it's totally fine to experience them. It's just being able to track them and like acknowledge, where they come from, how to decrease it, and how to like improve your feeling of sense of belonging on campus will really help you deal with imposter syndrome. I never want you to think that your imposter syndrome is the end all be all. You're feeling it, yes, but other people have also felt it, and you can decrease it, and it does not mean that you don't belong. You have to remember that wherever you're at, you're there because they chose you to be there. They picked you. You applied and you were chosen to be there. So at the end of the day, you're there because they want you to be there. So you shouldn't feel like you don't belong, and you shouldn't feel like you're not good enough. You're there because they want you to be there. You are good enough for that position. You are worthy of being in the place that you are. So just acknowledge that and then do the action steps, and you should be totally fine. Thank you for listening today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's all we have on imposter syndrome, but we're coming back with the next episode for you next Saturday. Stay tuned for more.